Hey guys, what's up? Alright, it's Double Deuce back. I've been playing with the Enjomore V8 water pump, and I've seen a couple of things here. Some might be a very simple fix that anybody can do. And anyways, grab your favorite smoked beverage popcorn and hang out with me today. Okay, here we are. Now what I did was I measured inside the housing, because my first thought was like thermal expansion. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but the different rates when you apply heat to something like these gears, this shaft, those bearings, and this aluminum housing, everything expands suddenly at a different rate, okay? And you need room for the expansion. So what I've come up with is I did this here. I took my little meter here and I measured down inside the case right to the very bottom, not including the bearings. Okay, we got 2011 on one side. Let's go to the other side. What do we got? So it's not machined exactly perfect from one side of the case to the other. Okay. Now, that being said, I wanted to measure the gears on the thing, and let me get it down here where I can measure them, and they are just almost exactly the same length as inside the housing. Now, when I stumbled across this, because there's a rubber O-ring here, which I showed you guys before, that little O-ring right there goes in here, and a little groove inside the housing. You see that little machine groove there, it sets in there. Now, it's all great and everything when you first put it together, okay? As it gets hotter, the thermal expansion comes in, and the screws that are tightening up the front half of the water pump to the back half, all right, they're tight. The only thing that's keeping them where they're supposed to be is this little rubber O-ring. Now, when the O-ring shrinks because of the heat, the case comes together tighter and it locks everything up. Now, I didn't get a chance to measure the depth of the shaft holes where the bearings ride, but what I did see was, if you look closely at the top, like right around, you'll see where this top gear has been chafing the case. You see the spot in there, and see all the shavings? That tells me it's swelling up and pushing this thing into that case, because the bearing is set deeper in the front and then in the bottom. You can actually see the bearing in the very bottom. If you look closely, you'll see the bearing keeping it away from the case. So when I took my pump, I checked it was locked up, and I tore it apart and I put it back together. Now, as I was tightening it down, it locked up again. And I thought, I didn't even have the screws that tight. So what I did was I released the screws just where they were snug, and it was still hard to turn. And I released them where they were loose, and it turned very freely. Now, I think that the bearings in this, I know they're cheap, but the bearings are only supposed to ride, if this is your bearing, it's only supposed to support the weight up and down, not on its side. And when you stress a bearing on the side, that's when it gets really hot, let alone the coolant coming through it is not going to cool it. It's going to self-destruct those bearings. And if you put rust in there from water and the bare steel shafts here and the bare steel bearings, because these aren't stainless, you can see because of the corrosion in the bearings. So if they are stainless, they're very cheap. But when you have thermal expansion, it's catastrophic on an engine. Now, I'm working on it right now. You'll see I'm hollowing out that little bottom hole so I can relieve the pressure off the belt, because you can see the belt has been stretched from the thermal expansion. Now, if anybody wants to know, this is looks like an 89 MXL belt, 89 MXL. So, in case you are looking for one online, you can find them if you can't get one from Sterling Kit. So, and the reason I thought of this thermal expansion problem is, if you've ever noticed, on my Connolly V8, when I put the supercharger on it, there's no spring tensioner for the belt. It's a manual thing. You set it and tighten it down. Now, on a belt that has teeth like this inside, you don't need to have the thing crank super tight. You need some room for all those pieces to heat up and expand. Now, on my Connolly V8, I broke the blower belt because I totally forgot you need a little bit of slop for the metals to expand when it's running, because it gets hot and it swells up. That's the same case with this here. You know, on your car, you have a spring-loaded tensioner. On these engines right here, they're all solid. There's no adjustment, but you can see there is play in the belt for the heat to expand everything. So that would be okay in my book. But when you have a small belt that's running under duress from the heat and everything else, it's going to lead to a catastrophic event. So here's my fix for this, and it's very simple. I buy these O-ring assortments here. You can get them at like Harbor Freight or wherever. They come in very handy in the hobby. Now these are standard. These are metric here, and they do sell the standard ones in the red cases. So the metric ones we're going to use quite a bit in our hobby. So I buy them, you know, by the bulk, and they come loaded. So you got plenty of O-rings. And the reason I bought these was because I needed the smaller ones here, which are basically the Tamiya ones that come with the bruisers and stuff. You know, those little O-rings they give you. I needed those to rebuild my fuel injection unit on my old 928 Porsche. And I just kept these around and kept them for the hobby. Now, another thing you can do is you can just take some gasket material, some thick stuff, not real thick, because you want these shafts to ride in the bearing. So if you put like maybe some thin gasket material in there, you can cut it out with an X-Acto knife. Be careful. And then you can even still use your rubber O-ring in there if you want to. Now you can tighten it down properly, and I guarantee the gasket material is not going to shrink under thermal expansion like these O-rings do. Now, my thought was just to put a bigger O-ring on it. I might just try that for now. But like I say, when I untighten these 4 screws, man, this thing just was so free. Now, when you're running something like this on your engine and it's not free and it's dragging down and saying that, you know, it's heating up and it's straining the engine, you're not going to get no RPM out of that engine, because now it may only take a fraction of horsepower to run this pump, but now that it's locking up, it's going to take a lot more for that engine to turn this pump, which is going to steal horsepower away from that. You won't get it to your clutch. So anyways, guys, that's a quick video I wanted to throw out there for you guys. So any questions, comments, throw them down in the comment section there. And hope you guys are having a good Labor Day weekend. So, and I'm going to play with this finally. Finally, I get to goof off, you know, no stress. Might even knock back a couple of Coca-Colas later and enjoy my day. So, all right, love to all. Like, share, subscribe if you want. Tell your friends, and I will catch you later, man, for some cool content.